Hi, in this video, I'm going to create this buff effect using geometry nodes in Blender. Here I am in geometry nodes tab. Let's add a cube. And for this cube, I'll create a new geometry nodes graph. I'll delete the input node, and in place of that, I will add a spiral node. Let's connect it to the output, and you can see some input parameters in the spiral node. For example, we have radius for both the ends. We also have a parameter to change the height. I'll do one thing. I'll make radius of both the ends same and increase the height a little bit. Then I will add a curve to mesh node and use curve circle as the profile for curve to mesh. Make sure you reduce the radius and resolution in curve circle. The radius can be around 0.02 meter, and connect curve circle to curve to mesh. So now you can see we have added some volume to our spiral curve. Feel free to play around with the radius value as per your requirement. Here you can see the radius of this spiral is same, and I would like to have more radius at the center as compared to the ends. So for that I can add spline parameter and connect the factor to scale input of curve to mesh. So here you can see the bottom end of the curve has minimum radius and the other end has the maximum radius. So to deal with this, we can add a float curve node between spline parameter and curve to mesh. And you can see that I have added a few points on this curve in the float curve node. And now you can see we have maximum radius at the center of this spiral curve, and the radius of the curve spiral curve is minimum at both the ends. And this is what I was talking about. Let's add join geometry. I will connect the spiral curve node to another curve to mesh node and then take its output to join geometry. So now we have two spiral curves right on top of each other, and at the same time I can also connect the curve circle and float curve to the second curve to mesh node. Now for the first curve to mesh node, I will add a transform geometry node just before it. And with the help of this node, I can move around my spiral curve like this, and I can also rotate it a little bit. Now let's add set material node after both the curve to mesh nodes. And in the side panel, I'll create a new material. Let's call it ribbon. You can give any name, it's a variable. And after that, in both these set material nodes, make sure you select the same material, ribbon. Now let's go to the shading tab, our shader editor. And over here in the principal BSDF, I will select a color for emission and increase its strength. Let's add a camera and select a view for our camera. Also, I would like to make the resolution square. Now, as you have seen at the start of this video, in the animation, the spiral curves were appearing and disappearing. So that is the animation. Now we will focus on. Let's add a node delete geometry just before the group output. And you can notice that it has deleted the spiral curves. Don't worry about that. We'll get back to it. Let's add an empty object and drag the empty object as object info node. Also add a position node. Then I will add a distance node and connect the position node and location output of object info into this distance node. Let's add a compare node with greater than logic. And now I will connect the result of greater than to selection of delete geometry. And in the greater than node, I can specify the B parameter. So now you can see that as I move my empty object vertically, the spiral curves appear and disappear. And now we can easily set keyframes for this empty object, move it around and animate it. The spiral curves will automatically get animated. So I'm using a clip of 60 frames. At the first frame, I've set a keyframe for this empty object. And at the last frame, that is the 60th frame, I've set another keyframe for this empty object. And you can see this is how our animation will play out. Now let's add a plane. And this is a top view. Drag this plane on the y-axis away from the spiral curves. And I will create a heart shape from this plane. I'll delete the left part of this plane. And now I will edit the remaining part of this plane. I've selected this point and press Ctrl B plus V to bevel it. and also drag down this other point like this. Basically, you have to create a heart shape. It's entirely up to you how you approach it. Now I will select the entire mesh of this plane, go to the mesh options, select symmetrize, and there you go. Our two-dimensional heart is ready. Select the spirals. This geometry nodes graph will appear, and I will drag this hard plane like this. So whenever you drag any object into your geometry nodes panel, it will be imported as object info node. Now let's add a cylinder, and let's reduce the vertices to 16. And to view the output of any node in geometry nodes, select that node, press shift control on your keyboard and left click on your mouse. So this viewer node will appear and the output of that particular node will be visible in the viewport. So this is our cylinder. It has 16 vertices, and let's distribute the points on faces of the cylinder. I'll reduce the density to like 0.8, and next I will add instance on points. And here I will add the heart to the instance parameter. So now instead of points, we have these instances of hearts. These hearts are away from the center for some reason. Let's see what we can do. I will add another join geometry node just before the group output. Drag this bunch of nodes closer to the output. And from the instance on points node, I will drag the output straight into the join geometry node. Also, let's add a set material node between object info and instance on points and select the same material ribbon. So now both the hearts and the spiral curves share the same texture. Let's add a transform geometry to the cylinder primitive. In the instance on points node, I will change the rotation of X angle to 90 degrees. And now I think it's perfect. The hearts are in line with the spiral curves. And you can use this transform geometry to move the cylinder or resize the cylinder. So I've reduced the length of the cylinder or height of the cylinder so that we have fewer number of hearts. And this is how you can move your hearts up and down by changing the value of z coordinates. So let's add a keyframe for z coordinate, and at the 16th frame change the value of z coordinate and set a keyframe again. So now this is how our animation will look like. However, we also want the hearts to appear and disappear, just like these spiral curves. I think this should be the initial position of the hearts. Okay, now to make these hearts appear and disappear, we will have to use the same logic that we use for the spiral curves. So I will add a delete geometry node after instance on points over here and connect the output of greater than to the selection. So it has deleted the instances of hearts, and if I play the animation, the hearts do not appear at all. So I think there is something that we need to fix over here. Instead of point, the domain should be instance. Alright, there you go. The hearts are back again, and let's play the animation. Perfect. So it seems to be working now. And let me create a group for these nodes by selecting them all and pressing F key in my keyboard. And then I will press N key in my keyboard. The side panel will appear. From here I can select the node tab and change the color of this group as well as the size of the font of the title. So it's actually a good practice to group your nodes like this and give it some title or label so that later you come back to this geometry node file, you should be able to understand what logic you are working on. Now let's go to the compositing tab and I will add a glow node over here. Okay, so now you can see that we have a glow effect to our spiral curves and the hearts. And to see that glow effect in viewport, just select that always option. And there you go, this is our final animation.